What's going on, guys? Brian here. Once again, sorry about the really late video. I'll admit it, I've been outside, fellas, so I kind of been behind on some projects, so sorry this is coming out late, but hopefully this will make things a little bit more clear for you. As you can see, I have a nested data structure right here. We have a list, another list inside of that list, and a string in there. So notice how all of these are iterable, which means we can loop through them. It's important to not forget that strings are iterable. And here I have 3 for loops. Wow, we're already jumping to 3. So this is 3 for loops, and I have color-coded them so I can show you how it's running, I guess. So first, I'm going to begin with the first line of code, which is blue, and I'll show you what it accessed. I'm going to do this in a similar way to my nested data structures video and how to access it. So if you haven't seen that, it's basically the same thing, but instead of using actual brackets like indexes, we're going to be using for loops. So to begin, I will be showing you what the variable mini will be whenever we're running this blue line right here. So we are now on for mini in nest. Mini will be equal to what I underline right here. It'll be the list and this list. Notice how I underline the entire list. So if you print out mini, like in between here, if you print mini, it'll print this entire list and this next entire list. So first, it'll start right here, and then it'll move on to this. But before it does that, since we're going to do it in order, this is what mini is so far. And next up, when we do s in mini, that means basically for every string inside of the list. So before mini can proceed to the next list, we're going to run this red line of code, and the red line of code will be equal to these guys. Anything inside of mini. And because, once again, we are doing it in order, A, B, the whole thing is S right now. And next up, we are in our last for loop. And remember, strings are iterable, so we can actually access the individual characters inside of the string. It's important to know vocabulary for this one, guys. So C will be equal to this, but later on, it'll be equal to these guys later, but yeah. So right now, we are now at the print statement C. We're going to print out A right here. And next up, green is going to move on now. Notice how red and blue haven't moved on yet. Blue is going to wait for red to finish. Red is going to wait for green to finish. And green can do whatever it wants. It's just going to print and finish on its own. So once it prints out A, it'll now move on to the next one. And it'll now be equal to B. So it jumped from A to B. It's going to print out B. And because there's nothing left, it's going to try and move on, but there's nothing left. Green is now finished with its iteration. And sorry, I'm erasing the words a little bit. So green is now finished with its iteration. So now red can move on. Red can move on again. And now red is equal to C. And here's an interesting example now. What happens when green gets called now and it's trying to be equal to C? Because C, isn't that just a character, Brian? Well, in Python, you can still loop through this because they're kind of treated the same, at least in a for loop. So C will be equal to this, and because there's nothing left, it'll print out C and be done with its iteration. So green is done. And once red is done, red sees that green is done, and because there's nothing left to do, there's no more that list is over. Red is now done with its job. And blue can finally move on. Blue is like, okay, red is done, and it probably doesn't even know about green. Blue is like, okay, red is done, so next we're gonna move on to the next list. Right here. And once blues moves on, it's going to wait for red to finish its job. Red is going to be equal to the string here, which is DE. And once again, it's going to wait for green. Green is going to be like, okay, print this guy. Next up, print E. Green is done. Green did its job with the specific characters. Red finds out that green is done with its job and is like, all right, moving on to the next guy, which is F. So this is no more. S is now equal to F. For C and S, green is going to be set to this guy, print out F, and green is now done with its job again. Red is going to detect that green is done with its job, and because there's nothing left in that list, or the mini list in there, it's chilling now. And blue gets notified that red is done, and blue is like, okay, let's move on to the next thing. Oh, there's nothing there, so I guess we're done with the entire list. So I just did the step-by-step process on how things move on, I guess, with each other, but I'm gonna now underline the stuff that has been accessed by each color. So remember, blue has accessed these big lists inside of the giant list, I guess. Red specifically gets the entire string, right? Red gets the entire string, and green is the one that gets the specific character and prints them out. And red is waiting for green to finish its job, blue is waiting for red, green is just doing its own thing, it's just printing, doing whatever, and once that's all done, the code is finished. So yeah, next up I will show you this working in PyCharm or Python, and hopefully this makes a little bit more sense to you guys. So yeah, good luck with your exam. Hey guys, so now I am on PyCharm and I'm going to show you that once you run this code, you can already see it. It does print out the individual characters, but instead of just printing C, I will now print S, and we don't need this line of code anymore. So let me show you what red was. Notice the difference how red was the specific longer string itself instead of the individual characters. As I've underlined on the board, the red line, right? And once we comment this out, let's print out and let's see what mini is. And as said before, mini should just be the list. It should be these ones that I'm underlining right here or highlighting. And it is. So that is the individual barrier. So that's why I was underlining stuff at the beginning and at the end of the video to show you what it'll eventually access. And yeah, hopefully this helps you with nested loops and nested lists, specifically accessing nested stuff with the loops. Now, this will honestly only work if everything inside of the nested data structure is iterable. Now, what does that mean? If you have a 5 in here, how are you supposed to loop through 5? You need at least range or something like that, right? And as you can see, because integer objects are not iterable, it crashes. So this is honestly a very specific use scenario where everything inside of the nested data structure is iterable, meaning you can loop through them. And remember, I'm pretty sure almost all data structures are iterable as well as strings, because strings is just a data structure filled with characters. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, I know it's last minute, but you know what? I will do my best to help you guys. So yeah, good luck in your exam, guys. Bye.